Hearing you on the media was wild. Wait, what is on the media? Hearing you on the media was wild. Was that CBC? I'm going to do another hit with the Canadian broadcasters, I think next week as well. Oh yeah, FEMA, apparently there was like a FEMA controversy as well. I forgot. What is on the media? I was on the media. I did not see that. Send it to me. But yeah, let's get started with this. Hasan Piker on Kamala Harris's loss. You can't podcast your way out of this. A lot of these guys are right adjacent, maybe. They organically found themselves in this space. And I think the Republican Party took advantage of that very well. That same ecosystem doesn't exist on the left. It's not necessarily flooding the market with like a bunch of liberals. Like, oh, if we had like 8 more Pod Save Americas that kind of look like me, for example, like more bro-y, right? Then that would be fine. It's like, no, you can't podcast your way out of this problem. There was a list that looked at who had the top like election night coverage, who had the most views. And that list was populated exclusively by right-wingers except for me. So I'm out there. I'm here. But obviously, I'm not directly aligned with the top of the ticket or with many of the establishment Democrats and their attitude towards consistently and stubbornly defending third-way neoliberalism. There is a divide here that does not exist within the Republican base of support that will develop a relatively conservative audience. So I think this is an issue that has to be solved top down. I think first, it's not about like 10 more podcasters or 20 more liberal podcasters. I think it's more so about the Democratic Party looking within and doing the correct autopsy after this 2016 style defeat. I think not addressing the economic hardships that people were experiencing with direct policy prescriptions in a way that separated yourself from Joe Biden was probably the number one problem. The Aiden Ross. Democrats have been doing some deep soul searching and plenty of finger pointing in the wake of Vice President Kamala Harris's decisive election loss. Some liberals suggested that the key takeaway from the 2024 election is to build the left's version of Joe Rogan. There were several things that contributed to Donald Trump's massive victory among young men, but none were discussed with as much fury and fervor as his appearance on the podcast live streams hosted by Rogan, Theo Von, Aiden Ross, and the Nelk Boys. On the left, there's a fairness meter on this article, and it's pushed all the way to unfairly left-leaning. Yeah. I mean, I don't care. On the left, there's precisely one influencer who commands such large following. Hasan Piker, progressive Twitch streamer with 2.8 million followers, drew 313,413 viewers for his election night live stream. He was the third most popular streamer and also the only non-conservative streamer to break into the top 10 live streams that night. So Piker knows a few things about existing in the so-called bro space. Unfortunately for Harris and the Democrats, you can't podcast your way out of this problem, Piker told Newsweek on Friday. The 33-year-old influencer said it would do the Democratic Party little good to just flood the podcast market with 8 other versions of the popular Pod Save America show, a liberal political podcast hosted by a crew of former Obama aides. That's not the problem, said Piker, who would be somewhat to the left of the Pod Save boys. People like me exist. I have one of the largest election night coverages out there. The real issue is that the Democrats are up against the ideological divide between its base and the rest of the party. For Piker, the aphorism that Republicans fear their base and Democrats hate their base has never rung more true. Republicans can get away with taking advantage of that space, he said, emphasizing that there are billionaire GOP mega donors who share the same interests as right-leaning influencers, which leads to cross-pollination. But that same ecosystem doesn't exist on the left. It barely exists for Pod Save America. CNN and MSNBC barely even cross-pollinate, Piker continued. The liberal and I guess progressive outlets have completely shut off the independent media from entering their sphere of influence. And besides that, there is a deep ideological divide. For months, Piker has warned Harris's campaign that its failure to represent the voters who would cast more ballots for the Democratic nominee would lead to its collapse. He stressed that the Democrats need to move more to the left and stop trying to court moderate Republicans and center-right voters who proved again on Tuesday that they would not budge for Harris. Exit polls show that 94% of Republicans still voted for Trump, while independents only broke for Harris by 3%. In 2020, Joe Biden won independents by a whopping 13%. For the Democratic Party has actively chastised and pushed aside a lot of people that would normally vote for them, and they continuously had done this cycle after cycle, Piker said. And in the end, the bottom fell out. It wasn't just a large swath of young men who moved to the right. This year, Trump won 1/5 of black men, nearly half of Latino men, doubling his standing among the first group and moving Hispanic majority counties on average 10 percentage points to the right. In Dearborn, Michigan, the majority Arab community that helped Biden win in 2020, Trump won 42% of the vote to Harris's 36%. And none of it should have been a surprise, according to Piker. He argued that by sending pro-Israel Democrats like Representative Richard Torres and former President Bill Clinton to Michigan, Harris' campaign openly communicated that they did not want anyone who cared about Palestine to go out and vote for them. They actively pushed aside these people with the hope that they could win the suburbs over, win these conservative voters over, and it was a failure. The biggest mistake that Harris made, in Piker's view, was not addressing voters' concerns about the economy with direct policy proposals that separated her from Biden. For the entirety of Harris's campaign, poll after poll showed that the economy was a major voting issue for the nation. Exit polls showed that deep discontent with the Biden administration's handling of the economy ultimately drove Americans to Trump. What? National exit polls revealed that 45% of people said they've gotten worse off under the current administration, making it the highest percent of the electorate to ever say as much, even higher than 42% who agreed with that sentiment in 2008. In the throes of global financial meltdown that was cratering the economy. Tim Dillon on this. What is this? Yeah, we'll look at this in a second. VOD watcher, first time chatter. Will VODs ever be free to watch again, or is this permanent? For the time being, if you want to watch the VODs, you have to subscribe. And I apologize for those who have not in the past. But oh, you're discussed at 2770 on 2742. You know what's really funny? Me and Ezra Klein were supposed to do a entire synopsis of the manosphere, brosphere, and like I think with his producers, like a 1 hour, 1.5 hour conversation ahead of time. And it would have been such a prescient podcast if we had actually done that. Like if we actually followed through on that. I think on the New York Times, this was a while ago and we were supposed to do it. But then I was also talking about at the same time, this was right before Kamala Harris was like swapped in. And I literally was like also on that train as well. And also Tim on where we are with re-education camps. What? Okay, we'll look at both of those. But okay, 2740 you said? That's when they talk about me? That's crazy. Well, I'll play this in a little bit. I wish we had done that. I wish we had done that convo because I think that would have been really good for both of us, like overall, like a really good assessment way ahead of time. Maybe it could have even reached out to some people that would have benefited from hearing this ahead of time, you know? But yeah, let's keep going. Piker said if the Democratic Party wants to recapture the attention of the voters they won in 2020, they have to abandon what he calls the vibe session narrative, where campaigns chalk up economic anxieties to the fact that Americans don't understand the issue, and that eventually they'll feel it when their wages catch up to inflation. Most Americans do not care about civility. They do not care about these institutions. They do not have an ideological fear. They just want to stop the hurt, Piker said. If Kamala Harris would have come out and been like, I'm literally going to jail the Walton family, people have been like, okay, as long as you're promising that that's going to drop the prices of groceries, I don't give a shit. They're on board with 20 million immigrants being deported because that's what Trump is saying. I'm going to deport 20 million immigrants and it's going to lower everything. It's going to be the solution to the housing crisis, he said. It's an insane thing to say. It's genuinely Hitlerian, but people are like, okay, well, I guess it's going to work. Who knows? We'll see. And they take a shot in the dark. You can't actively act like things are perfect. Things are perfectly fine when things have not been fine for Americans for quite some time. Asked about early data that shows more than 90% of counties shifting for Donald Trump, suggesting that Democrats' late pivot towards moderation may not have been the problem, Piker isn't convinced that it's because Americans love Republican policies. He believes a Democratic candidate who can deliver Senator Bernie Sanders' economic populist message earnestly could yield enormous results in a general election. He argues that there are many low and mid-propensity voters who don't always show up in the primaries, but could catapult the Democratic Party to major success if activated much as the GOP has experienced its version on the right. Piker used Missouri as an example. A deep red state, Missouri went to Trump with over 58% support and reelected Senator Josh Hawley, a populist Republican, with more than 55% support. And yet, the state voted in favor of two progressive ballot measures. On Tuesday, Missouri voted not only to create a constitutional right to abortion, but also to raise minimum wage and require paid sick leave. And again, Piker said it was Harris's loyalty to Biden that prevented her from tapping into the politics at play. Liberal polities that are not attached to a Democratic politician are fantastic. They're so popular all around the Rust Belt, all around the Midwest, in the Sun Belt, everywhere. People like progressive politics and progressive policies. They don't like the Democratic Party, and they especially did not like Biden. They rejected Biden tremendously, and they also rejected Kamala Harris partially because she had a very short window of opportunity, and she used that short window of opportunity to rush towards Biden. This is off the fucking... I like that... I'm going to say fair. I broke the needle. So yeah, this is most of this was on video too. I wonder if they'll like release the full video. You were about to explain why the Ezra thing didn't happen? Yeah, so Ezra Klein and I were supposed to have a conversation about the manosphere, about like right-wing podcasts and how they dominate, how they flood the market, and what kind of like impact this has on public collective consciousness, especially for young men who feel like, they're not really associating themselves with any sort of like political movement whatsoever. And the reason why we never actually did it was because even after I did like a whole thing with his producers, gave him information on background, just to like point them in certain directions of research, we never ended up doing the podcast because Kamala Harris became the candidate. So then obviously like everyone focused their attention on that, and we kind of dropped the ball on this. But luckily I was still able to have a conversation like this with the Pod Johns ahead of time. So there was at least like somewhere on the record where liberals will hear what I have to say, because they're not fucking tuning into my broadcast. The moment that they hear me criticize Kamala Harris, they were like, oh, this guy sucks. Oh, this guy's a hater. He wants Kamala to lose. He's a fucking radical, blah, blah, blah. Like, or even if they're like, I kind of like Hasan, but I really don't agree with him. And I personally don't want to hear him shit on the Democrats because I want to feel good. And that's an understandable desire for people to have, right? I get it. I get it. You want a hug box. You want someone to tell you that things are going to be good. The problem is sometimes you need the hard to swallow pills, right? Sometimes you need to hear the hard to swallow pills, because that way you won't be left in the dark. Many members of my community, regardless of voting for Kamala Harris, were, due to my coverage on the issue, very aware of the real risks that were at play. Very aware of the likelihood that Donald Trump could win the election. Very aware of the likelihood, which I said was going to happen, where potentially Donald Trump could win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College, which did not happen. And that specifically did not happen because of Kamala Harris's incredibly bad campaigning in the blue wall, where it demonstrably did not resonate. The message that she kept pumping, which is another thing that I kept reiterating over and over again. We are not seeing a dramatic shift in the polls. If you're dumping $30 million into TV ads in key districts and it's not swinging in the polls in your favor, that means the ad spend is being burnt. That means that the message is not resonating. You have the bullets, you have the gun, you have the capacity to fire it, but the bullets are duds, okay? The message, if the message is bad, then it's not resonating. That's it. And you got to retriangulate. Something is obviously not working. And they burned through $1 billion. Not only did they burn through $1 billion, but they also seemingly lost $30 extra million in the process as well. There are $30 million in the tank by the end of the cycle. I was crashing out to my liberal friends after the DNC and on election night. They were like, oh shit, you were kind of right. All thanks to your coverage. Yes. A key component of being a leftist is being seen as unserious for being correct too quickly. Yes. It is very interesting to see. It is very interesting to see and hear like how different the reality is for many Americans that I guess were seemingly reading very partisan news that presented a false narrative of Kamala Harris absolutely destroying, absolutely running the best possible campaign. And they have consistently tried to play defense for their own coverage. They've consistently tried to play defense for their consultants that did the wrong things. Do you have any different opinions about the polls after this election since it seems 98.9 were wrong? Wait, what? No, the polls were not wrong at all. The polls were what? No, the polling was actually very solid. The polling was so solid. If anything, I was wrong for thinking that the pollsters' readjustment, the Trump bump, which even the likes of Nate Cohn talked about, was not even there. It was just correct. If anything, they still underestimated Donald Trump to a certain degree. But yeah, no, the polls were incredibly correct. It was within the margin of error, or completely correct in many instances. The polls were correct. It was more so the assessment of the polls that was incorrect. With the exception of the Seltzer poll that was like dramatically bad, right? Which gave people a lot of hopium in the direction of the Harris party, in the direction of the Democratic Party. Most polls were right on the fucking money. So yeah, let's hear. I didn't even know I was on the media solutions to that, but owning
Piker, a Twitch streamer and political.
People loved you on The Apprentice. They were going to love you as a president.
I figured it would be so easy. You know, it's
well,
very
it probably
interesting.
would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E.
We'll
Lee.
never know whether Rogan.
You know what's really annoying about this? Comparing Donald Trump to Hitler is not only correct, but it wouldn't even be bad strategy in terms of like communicating to the American public that he is the second coming of Adolf Hitler. The issue, on the other hand, is that you can't say he's Hitler and then simultaneously say, but I want Hitler's party members in my cabinet. You can't say that he's Adolf Hitler and then say, I want to build Adolf Hitler's border wall. Okay? You can't say he's Adolf Hitler and then keep saying, and Hitler has some good ideas. Because voters will obviously look at that and go, what the fuck? You're saying he's Hitler, but you want to be Hitler? But why would I vote for you? That is the issue. That inconsistency is something that I regularly pointed out. And I agree that Donald Trump's policy is Hitlerian. Okay? And I was deeply frustrated that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration's policy on the border was conciliatory to the Adolf Hitler policies. And not only that, but one other aspect of the Hitlerian comparisons is that if the out of touch Democrats, right? Because that's the way people see the Democrats. They see them as like liberal elites. They're out of touch. They only care about like gay stuff or whatever, right? It's not correct, but that's just the way people see the Democrats because the Democrats don't run on left economic populism, right? If the out of touch liberal elites that are only seemingly caring about gay shit from in the eyes of the public, which is not correct at all. The Democrats definitely don't care about gay shit either. Okay. Trust me. And the only thing you see Donald Trump on, if you also don't really watch a lot of like regular news coverage, the only time you ever see Donald Trump is when he's being a fucking chill ass guy, you know, talking about doing cocaine with Theo Vaughn or being a chill ass dude, making flipping fries at fucking Mickey D's. Then you're like, is this Hitler? Like, I feel like this doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. That Theo Vaughn appearance broke me, dude. That's when I was like, because the Aiden Ross one sucked and it didn't do a lot for him in terms of positive media coverage, in my opinion. But when I saw the Theo Vaughn interview, I was like, oh no. You remember, like we literally watched it together on stream and I was like, oh my God, he is so personable in this. He is so human in this. He is so chill in this. This is not good. And it wasn't just Theo Vaughn. I think Impulsive, Theo Vaughn, the Andrew Schultz podcast, all these fucking podcasts back to back, Nelk Boys, all this shit, like it fucking humanized him and made him look like a chill ass dude. Sometimes that seemingly chill ass dude is Adolf Hitler. Okay? The second coming. This is one of those times. Joe Rogan was the final, was the finishing touch on his, yeah, sure, I got some crazy policies, but I actually have, I actually recognize that the economy is shit and I'm going to solve it by doing mass deportations and concentration camps at the border, you know? Are you planning on going on the Flagrant Pod? I hit up Andrew Schultz to go on the Flagrant Pod, but he said he has like another special that he's taping, so we can't do it until next year. Weren't you on it already once? Yeah, I was. Why would you work with Schultz? Why wouldn't I? Why the fuck would you go on there? Because I'm a right-winger, baby. Because I'm a right-winger, baby. That's right. Oh, yeah, because I'm doing a fucking right-wing pivot, dog. That's what it is. And certainly not good that I would, be reaching out to a broad audience of somewhat apolitical right-wing people in a normal manner. Hey, guys, I love that many of you talk about how, where is our Joe Rogan? Where is our Joe Rogan of the left? Where is our Joe Rogan of the left? And then your fucking worst, annoying leftist instincts kick in like that. You literally will be like, we need a Joe Rogan of the left. And then he has to straight up never talk to a person that has even remotely triggered me. Okay? And I am triggered by everything. So trust me, you cannot go on a single other podcast. You have to literally sit here and only do this stream. You can only talk to Maoists. We get it. You're going on his podcast for money. Classic LA socialist move. Hell yeah, baby. I don't think the podcast made the difference, though. Relax. You really think the podcast made the difference, though? I mean, Biden really fucked up her chances of her campaign as well. Yes, no, Biden is like the top priority here for sure. I think Biden fucked his own chances up. Like, aside from being like old as shit, like one of the things that I said, even if I put my Democratic Party consultant hat on, one of the major L's, in my opinion, for the Democratic Party consistently has always been that they don't even fucking like openly communicate what they've done for the people. It's pathetic. It's stupid, right? It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. Why are you not consistently talking about all the fucking money that you're bringing to these different areas, okay? Opening up new manufacturing facilities, shit like that is so stupid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say like, no, the government does work sometimes, okay? Don't be afraid to use the bully pulpit to actually bully Republicans who are standing against progress and playing an obstructionist role, and then turning around and lying when they go back to their town halls and saying like, oh, look at all the money I brought back here. You're fucking stupid. You're dumb. Every time you go on these podcasts, there's at least a dozen comments saying how chill you are, and I think that's worth it. And it's not like you go on there to agree with Schultz on his views. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of people have
Yeah. Why would I go on a podcast that I've been on already?
credited you for Andrew Tate choosing to remove all of his content from social media. Really break that down.
He was on this other 17-year-old Fortnite stream because he was doing the rounds. He went to like
God, my hair is so ass.
Aiden Ross. He went to Clicks' stream. He's like,
Aiden Ross, I show speed. What the fuck? God, I look like ass. I need to fucking do this again. And look, finally got a lesbian feminist on the pod. Nice. Y'all should have had Andrew Tate to make a surprise appearance. That would have been flagrant. 56 minutes in the pod. I'm waiting on Schultz to light the blunt instead of twirling around like a white girl. Laha Akash goes so hard for Indians and knows nothing about being an Indian. Hasan is the exact opposite of flagrant. Yeah, a lot of people were inherently resistant to this podcast appearance, but many people were like, nah, you were chill as fuck, dude. Anyway, I have turned more people to the left, just recommending you for a non-politics video than anything else. Long hair is hot, man? No, I look like shit. The left needs more pockets of influence to combat the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Tates of the world. This is why that won't work. Drop It is a very left-leaning company in both actions and policy. They supported the writer's strike and their crew is still masking on set. And they previously donated to help Palestinians. Recently had a guest star show, previously posted about the October 7th attack. And many years ago talked about his great-grandfather's involvement in Israeli colonialism. That's clearly not good. It was a bad judgment call, but was arguably blown out of proportion by a loud minority of fans on Twitter and Tumblr. Yeah, there's also this issue too. I don't know what Dropout is, but like, there's also the issue of like, people very clearly on like the left does have a tendency to fucking eat itself, even though we have no fucking power whatsoever, which is why I never let that shit happen. You know, that's why I think that's one thing that a lot of people present me as like a humorless scold, but it's ironic that like I spend a good deal of time culling this fucking community when they behave like humorless scolds, right? Like, there's a reason. It's just gross. It's not a good way to put your best foot forward. Like, if you're trying to present a fun narrative, a fun message, if you're trying to get people on board, if you're trying to build like a coalition and you know, say a whole bunch of like annoying things, you're like, well, this, like, I'm not going to examine where this person is coming from, what their worldview is, and how they arrived at this conclusion. And I'm going to assume that every single person with a different perspective than myself is like intrinsically evil, ontologically evil even. Then, yeah, you're not a serious person. You're never going to be able to fucking reach a broad audience. It's just not going to happen, which is hilarious because like I literally don't do that And yet all my fucking naysayers constantly say I do that all the time. I think it's comical how the left are blaming Elon Musk and X for losing as if they don't control Facebook, Instagram, and every other social media platform. Brother, there is not a single... What are you talking about? Mark Zuckerberg literally openly said he likes Trump. Mark Zuckerberg has one of the most censorious fucking platforms out there. So much so that the Human Rights Watch directly called him out for consistently fucking banning left-wing voices for being pro-Palestine. So much so that it became an issue, okay? Mark Zuckerberg is openly right-wing. And not only that, but have you seen Facebook? You think Facebook is leftist? Are you fucking stupid? Go ask your grandmother what platform she frequents the most. And I doubt she is a die-in-the-wool socialist. Oh, you're saying that the right controls Facebook, Instagram, and every other social media platform. Is that what you're saying? Like, are we in agreement? Because Facebook, Instagram, like Meta is entirely captured and has always been very right wing. They straight up cry-bullied. They straight up cry-bullied themselves. I remember this because this was a big deal. This was a big ordeal. This was a big debate. Okay. Way back in the day in like 2016 era. And I remember talking about this consistently on panels that I was a part of, where I would say, like, guys, what are you talking about? The Heritage Foundation runs Facebook's moderation. If you look at the largest voices on Facebook, if you look at the largest voices on Instagram, the overwhelming majority of them are still very much far right. Like, Ben Shapiro's been dominating Facebook while calling Facebook a woke liberal shithole for years and years. They did numerous congressional hearings on this to bully every fucking tech CEO to make sure that their shit got priority. And all of these tech CEOs, after being bullied by Congress, gave that to them. Facebook is the reason why so many of your grandparents and so many of your parents believe in QAnon conspiracies, and you're over here being like, Facebook is so left-wing. Yeah, dude, you're right. Damn, Bongino does LeBron numbers on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, billionaire-owned social media platforms are left. This is a hilarious fucking take. Maybe you could say that for TikTok, but TikTok has right-wing radicalization. It has left-wing radicalization. They just have no moderation whatsoever. It's crazy. I don't think I've seen more out in the open racism than Facebook. Yeah. Here. My mom's boyfriend is liberal and he watches Ben Shapiro on Facebook. It's insane, lol. That's hilarious. All right, let's hear what the on the media had to say about me.
His endorsement moved the needle on Tuesday, whether Kamala Harris's appearance would have made any difference. But all the spilled ink about it this week says a lot about where it feels like political influence is headed.
I hope that this is the last Democratic nominee who says no to Joe Rogan. Like, even if you have to go to the studio.
I would go further than that, Ryan.
Yeah.
You need your own Joe Rogan is the bigger point. That's the bigger problem.
One of the closest analogs to a left-wing Joe Rogan is 33-year-old Hasan Piker, a Twitch streamer and political commentator. He's big and burly, fluent in memes and gaming culture. He gets the internet. But as a socialist, he's likely seen as too radical to be embraced by mainstream Democrats in the way that Republicans have harnessed their right-wing influencers.
Yeah, the difference is their right-wing influencers, some of which are radical, are directly inside of the party, right? Because the Republican Party is not at odds with like Matt Walsh, right? They will go on his show, regardless of how insane he might be. I mean, Donald Trump went on Alex Jones in 2016, guys. Never forget that, okay? I certainly didn't. He went on Alex Jones. If there is an opportunity where he will draw turnout, if there is a vein he can tap, he will tap it, okay?
I watched Hasan Piker deliver the results on election night with some 200,000 concurrent viewers. As the news began to set in, he started raging against Trump supporters who joined his chat to rub in the loss.
Donald Trump winning the presidency is not going to improve your life. It's actually going to continue making it worse because there are major material issues that you are experiencing, and neither party is actually providing any adequate solutions to that. But owning the libs is not going to improve your life. It is a way for Donald Trump and the Republican Party to distract you away as they pick your pockets and rob you blind.
For years now, he's been sounding the alarm on the rise of the manosphere.
There is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces.
Here he is speaking on Jon Favreau's podcast, Offline.
If you're a dude under the age of 30 and you have any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, every single facet of that is just completely dominated by right-wing politics.
As he watched Dana White shout out the podcast bros during that victory speech we heard at the beginning of this piece, Hasan Piker reacted on his live stream.
The mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. No! And thank you, America. Thank you. Have a good night.
What is this country? Whoa, we're done.
The news monoculture of old is dead. It seems that to many, the New York Times, a company that employs 2,700 journalists, is just one source of information and perspective. Joe Rogan, another. The incoming administration has shown us that it will lean on a new generation of personalities and media networks to spread its lies and shape hearts and minds. Here at OTM, we'll do our best to keep up.
Damn, let's go. That's pretty good. Not gonna lie, you did inspire me to go work out and join up with the DSA North Jersey chapter. Hell yeah. Damn, those hogs really had you worked up, huh? You were really raging hard. Yeah, that was my most quiet rage, and I'm really glad that they showed that and not me just like telling chatters that they're inevitably going to, do the deed. I have a crazy right wing shut-in uncle who has his guys he listens to daily, like Alex Jones. When I try to explain what you do, she's a hyper lib, just assumes you're a guy on the extreme other side without giving it a chance. Crossing that bridge is going to be hard. I mean, yeah. You would disagree with the replacing the New York Times show? Those people are needed? Yes. Yes. In the upcoming weeks, I will probably feature more journalists from these legacy publishers and establishment media that I really like and whose works I rely on, because I think that there are still a lot of important voices out there. I mean, there's never been a moment where I haven't done that, right? Obviously, like you guys probably saw, I had Estad Herndon on, and it was a remarkable conversation. It's something that we've done over and over again throughout this campaign as well. Estad and myself, we've talked quite a bit about the many issues with the Harris camp. And I think that he has a very different perspective on what's going on or what the issues are than like the average DC bubble person, because he's constantly out there, right? Can you get Jamel Bowie? I have had Jamel Bowie on this stream before. Way back in the day. You should do a concert in which you lip sync AI covers to yourself. Yeah, okay. I have always maintained the position that like that New York Times, Washington Post, mainstream media is an absolute necessity. Okay? I trust, while still upholding a high standard for their coverage, I still trust mainstream sources. Okay? Hank Green did a very cool video ranking bad and good takes from people in the aftermath of the election. Did he give me one? Did I get ranked in this? I think the left, especially the Democrat liberals, need to internalize that intentionally lying is an incredibly useful and good political strategy. I mean, that's like giving up at that point. Like, we're basically giving up. We're like, come on, just please lie. Like, at least, please. But you don't even have to do that. It would be better if you were honest, as a matter of fact, if you didn't lie. You know, if you were honest about these policies that you cared about, and then you personally advocated for these policies that you actually care about, it would be nicer. Anyway. Too bad the left is held to an infinitely higher standard than their right. It wouldn't work. Yes, it would. You just have to have charisma and be a little bit shameless. It would work. The problem is you have to be a populist, okay? And you have to also have that dog in you, okay? Bernie clearly did not have that dog in him. It was one of my major criticisms of Bernie Sanders, that he was far too conciliatory to power, and he would not fight back. He would not bite back, right? It was frustrating. He had good policies. He was, people loved him. People saw him as earnest, and he still, and they still read him as honest, right? Could have sworn you suggested the Dems also lie as a strat before. Yeah, I think that at that point, it's like we've given up, though. Like, we've given up so hard that we're just like, at least lie about the fucking policies you're not even going to advance is like crazy.